Peripheral blood. Here we can see a smear of human blood as is depicted in the atlas. A common cell you will see is a neutrophil. There's another one there, kind of grayish cytoplasm. A lobulated nucleus. Nucleus is in lobes, and really dark staining heterochromatin is what we see. Another popular cell is a lymphocyte, which is mostly looks spherical with a little bit of cytoplasm around it. Also, we see an eosinophil, which is similar to the neutrophil, other than it has these other granules, eosinophilic granules. In contrast to the eosinophil, we see the basophil. The basophil has blue granules, very large granules, kind of like the eosinophil, but it has the blue granules, and also it's hard to see the nucleus of a basophil because the granules do not lay to the side as they do in the eosinophil. The granules are actually above the nucleus, and that impeding us having a clear view of the nucleus. A couple more lymphocytes, and here we see a monocyte. Now, a monocyte is a cell that's in blood that makes a macrophage eventually, but it's a cell in the blood. And so we can see those here: eosinophil, basophil, monocyte, lymphocyte, and then again we can see a hieroglyph of his drawing. A neutrophil that has granules inside there, a lobulated nucleus, eosinophil with big granules, basophil with big blue granules, and some granules are above the nucleus, as you see, which impedes your view of the nucleus. Lymphocyte and monocytes, as we see there. Now, if we look at those in human blood, this is white blood cells in blood, we see the eosinophil. See the big eosinophilic granules. In contrast, we see the basophil with the granules. You can see where the nucleus is down there and below, but the granules impede our view of it, of the nucleus. It is a lobulated nucleus and big blue granules. In contrast, a neutrophil has a lobulated nucleus, as you see there. It does have granularity, but the granules are much smaller than that of the eosinophil or the basophil. Then we have a monocyte, mostly euchromatic nucleus, a lot of cytoplasm associated with it, and a lymphocyte, mostly spherical. It looks spherical at light microscopic level at least, and then we have a small rim of cytoplasm around it. And so in comparison to our drawing, these are neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, lymphocytes, and monocytes. So if we look at one of our slides, 113, and have these slides up here as a reference, we can see that these cells here are indeed neutrophils, monocyte, and then these guys are lymphocytes. Three more neutrophils here. So if we look at the human blood and sizes of things, you see that the red blood cells are the smallest. But of the white blood cells, you got the neutrophils, the monocyte, eosinophil, basophil, about the same size, and they're larger than is a lymphocyte, except when you have a large lymphocyte. Sometimes a lymphocyte can be quite large. And the smallest formed elements would be the platelets, and here we see platelets. So we see lymphocytes, neutrophils, monocytes, eosinophils, basophils, and the different components there. Look at 110 again. Again, use this as a reference. We have the monocyte, neutrophils, lymphocyte, neutrophil, maybe large lymphocyte, another neutrophil. In this slide, we see three neutrophils. Not sure if that's a eosinophil, I'm not sure. Certainly those are three neutrophils, another two neutrophils, and a basophil. So we see a basophil there with the granules hard to see. Here again we see two cells, lobulated nucleus, both of them. This is eosinophil and a neutrophil. Slide 113, another monocyte in through here and there. Lymphocyte, neutrophil, and we can see some little small things in here which are the platelets. Another monocyte, a nice monocyte here. lymphocyte red blood cells, and the smaller units here we see are indeed platelets. Neutrophil, monocyte, lymphocyte. And if we look at the lymphocyte in a carbon replica transmission electron microscopy, we see there's a light view, there's another light view. This is a lymphocyte, little rim of cytoplasm around it, big nucleus, mostly spherical. In the nucleus, we can see the nuclear envelope, the outer membrane, the inner membrane, and we can see nuclear pores. We can see nuclear pores, one of the things that we're supposed to see today. Here, as we look at the different cells in the blood, we can see the lymphocytes came down through a series and ultimately produced lymphocytes that we saw in the blood. Also, we can see the red blood cells coming down through here, losing its nucleus, and then end up to be erythrocytes. In contrast, we have the monoblasts, which give you promyelocyte, and then these cells would either make the eosinophil, neutrophil, or basophil. All those cells are from the same lineage of cells. The first ones of these cells are spherical. These are more oval in shape, more so than what's depicted here. So if we look at the bone marrow, we can see some cells that have a spherical nucleus. Here's one right here. And then there's another one, a darker nucleus. There's another one there, and there's another one. All these are part of the red blood cell line. Here we can see a larger one here, like a polychromatic normoblast, and then these were normoblasts in through there. If we look at these with electron microscopy, we can see a nurse cell. Here's its nucleus, and there's the nurse cell inside there. And we can see some polychromatic normoblasts. You can see nuclear pores still attached, but the nucleus is condensing, ultimately to be removed from these cells. And these cells are polychromatic because they have ribosomes and they still have hemoglobin is being added, but they still have some ribosomes associated with hemoglobin being pink, a ribosome being blue. That makes them polychromatic. As you get on down further, the ribosomes have been reduced, and you have the orthochromatic normoblasts like we see here and here. If you look at the bone marrow again and instead of looking for spherical nuclei, you look at those with an oval nucleus. Those are the ones that's going to set and going to be granulocytes. So you can see an immature one here, immature one here, and this is more mature, and finally you get some mature neutrophils that we see here. So again, if we look at the bone marrow, we can see different phases of neutrophil development. In the bone, in the blood itself, you see the mature neutrophils is what you see in the blood, but this is the marrow, and we're looking at the marrow over here. So we see some lymphocytes, some erythrocytes, some red blood cells. Also, we see some orthochromatic normoblasts about to pop out some things. Reticulocyte, which is a precursor to the red blood cell, but it's more developed than is the normoblast that we see here. Finally, you get the red blood cell. But also here you see a neutrophil developing. It's a lobulated nucleus, and we see some granules here. And these granules are much smaller than they are in this eosinophil. Eosinophil has very large granules, and the granules have a crystalline core, a crystal in the core itself that we can see here. But here we do have specific granules as well as these larger granules. The specific granules are kind of dumbbell shaped, as we'll see a little later on. So the cells that are not spherical will go into the lines of making neutrophils, basophils, or the eosinophils. And here we can see another electron micrograph showing a neutrophil being developed, a nurse cell, and through there another neutrophil. We can see the specific granules, the dumbbell shaped granules, and an immature one again starts out with an oval nucleus, and then it becomes a lobulated nucleus. Now, in contrast, if it has a big blue granules, and we can see them here, big granules without a crystalline core in this cell, this is a basophil. So if we EM8F, you see a host of white blood cells. Lymphocytes are more popular in through there. We can see various lymphocytes. There's also a monocyte, has lots of cytoplasm, a euchromatic nucleus with some heterochromatin around the edge. And then we see several neutrophils, because that's what's in blood. We can see several of these neutrophils inside there. We also see some platelets as well. A higher mag of that showing you the monocyte with all the organelles ready to make a macrophage. And then these cells are neutrophils. There's a neutrophil here, 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 here. You can see the lobulated nucleus. And these three are lymphocytes. Even though they look round, they're really not round at all, as you can see. Here another one showing you the specific granules. The dumbbell-shaped granules are the specific granules in the neutrophil. If we look at a cardiac stomach with a chronic infection, we can see lots of white blood cells. If here's a higher mag of the view showing you a lot of plasma cells as well. Plasma cells will be producing antibodies, of course, be drawing and helping the neutrophils eat up the cells. And here we can see a blood vessel, and in the blood vessel you see a lot of cells that are marginating. That is, they are attached to the surface of the membrane, this little venule, and they are going to migrate out into this region where there is a chronic infection. Here you can see these probably neutrophils, even though it looks like eosinophilic granules, they're probably neutrophils going out through there. We see a monocyte in through there, a lot of cytoplasm, euchromatic nucleus, projections off that would be associated with development of a macrophage from the monocyte. This slide 432 is one of the lung, and also is the animal has been fed the carbon such that the macrophages have picked up colloidal carbon, and we can see the macrophages in the air spaces there where they have action. So that's monocyte gives rise to a macrophage, and then one of the macrophages is going to be in the lung. We can see another one here. Very important function of these cells. So the monocyte, the monocyte, and then ultimately it produces a macrophage. We also saw in the chronic, we saw the plasma cells, the lymphocytes actually produce the plasma cells. So B lymphocytes produce a plasma cell. The next component is actually the megakaryocytes, which are producing platelets. Platelets do not have a nucleus in them. They're actually pinching off components of the megakaryocyte, the biggest, largest cell that you have in the bone marrow. And here at 12C, we can see one of those megakaryocytes. There's this nucleus. It's multinucleated phagocytic cell capable of phagocytizing. It's a multinucleated non-phagocytic cell, sorry. It produces platelets, and we can see all these different components in through there that will facilitate the production of platelets. In fact, if you look at the cytoplasm, you can see there's little vesicles inside there, and that would be very conducive to pinching off platelets associated with it. So we see the multinucleated megakaryocyte production of platelets, and basically what happens, the cell is outside the bloodstream, but the projections of the cell are inside, and then eventually little ones are pinched off these projections. And here you can see the projections of the cells of the megakaryocyte processes in the blood cells as they pinch off.